Bonjour à tous, je suis ravi de vous retrouver aujourd'hui pour ce nouvel épisode de l'Accounting Business Club, un épisode en anglais qui est exceptionnel car j'ai eu le plaisir de recevoir Alexis Kingsbury. Alexis Kingsbury, c'est simplement l'auteur du livre Accrual Intentions, à savoir le premier cabinet d'expertise comptable full IA. Donc dans cet épisode, bien sûr, on revient sur l'expérience qu'il a menée pour créer ce cabinet, mais surtout plein d'infos, plein d'insights que vous pourrez utiliser aussi dans vos cabinets. Le but, c'est qu'un maximum de monde puisse s'ouvrir l'état d'esprit et se dire qu'en fait, l'IA, c'est pas demain, c'est aujourd'hui, car oui, son cabinet tourne et oui, il a pu produire des comptes full IA. Je vous invite donc vraiment à écouter cet épisode et à prendre, j'espère, autant de plaisir à l'entendre ou à lire le livre que je n'ai pu en avoir aussi. C'était une joie et si l'épisode vous plaît, vous savez ce qu'il vous reste à faire. Mettez 5 étoiles sur la plateforme de votre cœur, abonnez-vous et partagez-le au plus grand nombre. Moi, je vous souhaite une très bonne écoute et je vous dis à
I'm so happy to having you on the show, Alexis. And I have to explain why we need to share your experience to all the French accountants because it's my audience. Honestly, what you did can change everything or at least open a lot of mind. Let me explain what's happened yesterday for me. Yesterday, I finished your book. You write Accrual Intentions. I'm sorry for my French accent, but I know you know what is the French accent because you experience it. So at the end, I want to know if I have the same the.
We will have to explain that at some point. We will come back to that. Good.
And you know what? I want to deep dive in what you feel about this experience. What's happened? What you try to do this, and what are your learnings? Because for me, I'm using AI every day. I'm using AI every day since almost 3 years. Okay, because my job is to be a consultant for accountancy firm. If I do it simple, and producing a lot of content. But at the end, you help me to rethink my way of using AI. And I feel like, do I really using, or I use it with my barrier and you just explode my barrier. So Alexis, thank you for accepting to accept the invitation. I'm really happy to having you and welcome in the Accounting Business Club in France.
There we are. Thank you very much for having me.
So first of all, how was Accountex?
Yes. So I spoke at Accountex London on the topic of I let AI do every role in my accounting firm.
Yeah.
I don't recommend it. That was the title.
Okay.
And in the session, I explained a bit about the experiment, which I'll do shortly, and then introduced the audience to my 100% AI team, because that's what the book is about, which is Accrual Intentions.
Yeah.
What happened when I built the world's first 100% AI accountancy practice. And so, as part of the experiment, I created 11 AI team members. I was the only human, and my aim was to do no work.
Yeah.
It was entirely set up as an experiment to find out what can AI do and where does it fall short. And so my presentation was sharing that. The book is sharing that. The most common question I get is, why did you do this? or even I had once from a very senior leader in a large accountancy firm say, why did you do this to us? So I should explain. My background is that I've worked in various forms of management consultancy for decades. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've run multiple businesses, including 2 software businesses. I speak at events about how businesses particularly can reduce the sort of bad stress in their business, how they can help their teams work more effectively, how they as leaders can elevate themselves to be able to do what matters most. And so that's kind of been my background and career for the last couple of decades. And what I saw, particularly when I was attending or speaking at events, and one of my software businesses has a lot of accountancy clients, which is Air Manual, which is all about documenting your processes, your onboarding, and so on. And so, as a result, I go to a lot of these events and have customers that are at those events and speak at those events. And what I was seeing was around AI, the journey was there were kind of two things. One was there was a lot of excitement around AI, particularly initially, but a general push of, okay, give me an example of how you can use AI. And typically we'd end up with 3 examples that would just come back to, which was, oh, it can transcribe your calls, it can and summarize it, it can draft you an email, and it can scan an invoice. And I think the problem was that increasingly people were getting frustrated that that doesn't feel transformational. And also, even people who had tried those things would find that by the time that they had fixed the errors, the corrections in the summary, the changing the email to quite meet their client and so on, and the scanning the invoice to get, but we've had tools that have done that for years now. Okay, great. Those tools providers are able to use this AI. It doesn't really affect me directly as an accountancy firm leader. And so I think there was this sort of feeling of, oh, it's really exciting, but I can't see why. And then increasingly in last year and towards the end of last year, and we're seeing it even more now, there's these 2 camps, divergent camps forming.
Okay.
And one is basically saying AI is incredibly capable. It's amazing. It's going to change everything. It's bigger than the Industrial Revolution. It's going to take everyone's jobs, and then it's going to kill us. And then the other camp is saying it's all rubbish. It's all a fad. It's all hype. It's all a bubble. And actually, it's just a tool. And actually, it doesn't even save you any time by the time you've made the fixes. And any benefit is just going to be in a few minor little places and tools. Don't worry about it. And I looked at that and said, well, they can't both be true. but there's elements of truth in both.
Yeah.
Like both of them have got some good points and some accurate observations.
Yeah.
So I concluded the only way I was going to work out the truth was to take it to the extreme. Take it to as far as I could possibly do, hence creating a 100% AI firm, so that I could see what breaks and what doesn't, what works well.
Yeah.
And so that was my starting point and why I chose to do it that way, particularly because by early February, I was using agentic AI, different to chatbot AI, in my own businesses. And started to realize, this makes a big difference. Because the initial idea for the experiment was back in September last year, September 2025. And initially, I just set it up as a series of custom GPTs, where basically you kind of create a sort of mini thing within ChatGPT, where it's got its own files, and you say, look, I want you to behave in this particular way. And so I was kind of manually getting them to talk to each other, to discuss things and review each other's work, which I found improved the output rather than just giving it a one shot with one agent, or with one custom GPT. Whereas by the time I was in February, I was using agentic AI, where lots of people will have used ChatGPT, some version of it, or some similar tool to essentially you ask it a question or ask it to do a thing and you get a response. Maybe it's a draft email. You can then copy that into wherever you want to do it or whatever. Agentic AI, agent AI, is where it can actually do things. You give it a folder or multiple folders. You also give it some tools via connections, via API or MCP, if you want to get into the technical thing, but essentially connections into tools that you already use. And you say, actually, I want you to create things, do things. So it might be, for example, one of the things that I did early on in my experiment was I asked Grace Ledger, my AI managing partner, to come up with the vision, to come up with a series of work streams for, to come up with a vision, the goals, and then a series of work streams to deliver the next quarter of her goals.
Yeah.
And so she didn't just come up with it and it comes up in a chat response.
Yeah.
I got separate files. I got her to produce separate files, one for vision, one for our goals, one for, okay, what are each of the work streams? And then once she had done all of that, and it had like 108 deliverables as part of these 7 work streams or whatever, I said, go, just go, do. Right, and assign it to relevant team members, because each of these 11 AI team members, I've got these role descriptions with both their responsibilities, but also personalities.
Yeah.
Partly for fun, partly because I believe that actually intelligence and good decision making in real businesses comes about through diverse perspectives and different like lenses that you look at a problem.
But this is really impressive. When I read the book, I feel like at the end, I feel like, okay, I know them.
Yeah.
I can feel it. And I don't want to say everything in the book, but when you read it, you feel like, are they, is it are they human? Or what's happened? But it's part of your experience. And just to have a step back, it's really important to understand your experience. And because you know how to manage team, and because your part of a big part of your job is to help firm to manage their team, you be able to create the best team at the beginning. And this is something important.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning that, I mean, in business, just generally, so much is down to luck. And if people think that that's not true, then you've just not like spotted the cause of some of that luck. I feel incredibly lucky, and I got incredibly lucky with this experiment because when I began using AI, I hadn't thought about what background and skills and so on would be needed to make good use of it. What I discovered was that a lot of the skills that you need are around designing work and organizational design and workflows and processes and review and feedback loops and role architecture and how people work together and teams work together. It's basically been my career for the last 25 years. I studied management science at university, which was all about the science of management. You know, I was studying, and I studied business studies before that. Like, I've been studying for a long time and been passionate about as well, and personally reading about how do you make organizations work and organizations of individuals, and how do they come together, and how do you organize them in teams, and using things like Peter Drucker to look at how many people can one manager manage, and why is that, and what implications that have. So and then I've been working directly with organizations and top leadership teams to help them work out how they get all of that to work. So I'm very fortunate. I got lucky that I happen to have had the decades of experience in this area to be able to very quickly see some of the behaviors, the mistakes, the failures, the challenges that exist when working with AI teams, essentially AI team members, and how they relate to human organizational challenges, and what I know the human solutions are. And therefore I've been able to then experiment whether do they then apply with the AI, and often the answer is yes. So it's true to say that I got lucky, and as a result have been able to from the beginning set it up in a very particular way. It wasn't like I just started up and I created one AI and then just let's see what happens. I very much set it out as what would the perfect accountancy firm look like, except I can only have AI team members. And it was something that I'd already been working on because, as I mentioned in the book, writing Accrual Intentions, indeed the entire experiment, arguably was a procrastination, a tangent from what I was kind of meant to be doing, which was writing a different book, which was called The Accountancy Playbooks. Now that is still work in progress, and I'll kind of come back to it. And it's kind of how my brain works. But that that journey I'd been on with the accountancy playbooks was all about designing the growth of an accountancy firm and how does it overcome the key obstacles that it faces. And so I was in Accrual Intentions, I was able to say, okay, what does perfect look like? What's the firm of the future? So there are lots of things that came together that allowed me to build it in the way that I did. But then the reason that I wrote it as a book was because part way through the journey, I realized that the way in which I was using it, the agentic AI model and so on, was incredibly capable, to the point that the question changed from what can AI do and where does it fall down? And it changed from that to now it can do everything. What are humans for?
Yeah.
And that was really upsetting, terrifying, like really just devastating. And I wasn't sleep during particularly during the fullest part of the experiment. I wasn't sleeping well. I was sleeping 2 hours less per night than I do normally. And I don't sleep a lot. I sleep maybe 6.5 hours is my ideal. That's what's good for my body. I was sleeping 4.5 for multiple weeks in a row. And it was because of the emotional devastation that creeping realization was causing. Was what happens? What happens to society? What happens to jobs if AI can just take all of these? And of course, that's something that some people have raised as a big concern. So then I was, of course, duty bound to complete this experiment and see if I could have an answer to that. And the good news is I did come to a conclusion on that. And actually, the short answer could be summarized as, if all businesses just replace humans with AI, they all become commoditized. There's no added value. And therefore, it becomes very easy to outcompete one of those businesses by just adding humans on top. Therefore, that doesn't, and also there are things that humans are best suited for, that AI is not. And therefore, there is opportunity for the humans. So as a result, I ended up concluding, actually, no, you do end up with humans. And there are new skills or deepening of skills. And there's actually new opportunities, which we can talk about, including accessing neurodivergent team members better and increasing people's capability just more generally. But my worry was in the short term, we could see a load of business leaders making what I believe is the wrong strategic decision to get rid of a load of people because they can replace me with AI. And that's an inaccurate, incorrect conclusion in my view, based on all the research that I've done. But it is a temporarily logical one about halfway through in my experiment, which is why I felt a need to write the book, because I needed to take people through the full intellectual journey and also the emotional one, because I found that hard. And I was doing it as an experiment on an industry that wasn't my own. Like my clients are in accountancy, but I'm not an accountant. Obviously, I could see the ramifications for wider professional services, just business, society, etc. But I was thinking, for a trainee accountant, for a leader of an accountancy firm, what do they need to hear? And so that's why I wrote it as a book, and it's why I wrote it as a comedy to help people to deal with it in a way that isn't quite as emotionally upsetting, which hopefully you found.
Really. And that's why I really want to share it, because I think it's really important when you run an accountancy firm or even a service firm like me, to understand, okay, this is what can AI with agentic can do right now. Okay. And maybe we will deep dive into the experience, because it's because of you, I will meet Ryan Percy in London in July.
Fantastic.
Because I want to understand, okay, you're not an accountant. You had created the perfect accountancy firm team. And when I read all the people you have, when I discover all the people you have in your team, I can say, okay, this is the perfect team. You have a French girl, and it's important always to have a French girl or a French guy in a team, because because we are French and obviously we have this sense of humor. But at least you have the marketer, you have the compliance, you have everything. And if I run an accountancy firm, it's really hard for me to say it with this accent. But it's I need to have a certain level of turnover to have 11 people in my team.
Agreed.
And you have 11 top player in your team day one. And then you see that, okay, they can, of course they made mistakes, but they can produce real work. Can you explain us a bit the beginning of the experience, the day one? The team is okay, and then you start. What do you feel when you see that, and what did you do? What can you do differently if you have to do it?
Yes. So, I mean, it probably helps if I explain one of the first moments where I had the eye-opening, like, gosh, okay, what does this mean? Was shortly after sort of continuing the story I mentioned earlier, where I got Grace Ledger, the managing partner, to create these work streams, and I said, go. And then I left my desk and walked off and did some other things and came back and saw that 8 minutes later, that Grace had created all these, had assigned these work streams to these AI team members, and that each AI team member had then worked on these things as these sub-agents and so on. And as a result, they had built all of it, 108 deliverables, so 108 files, in total 350 megabytes of data, like no images or videos or anything like that. Like, that's a huge amount of text over the course of just 8 minutes. And there were two big things that stuck out to me. One was as I started to dig into what was there. So, for example, a template spreadsheet that had been created for doing cash flow forecasts, a spreadsheet that had been done for doing a scenario analysis for like investments, a spreadsheet template that was created around doing monthly management accounts. We had SOPs, we had processes for how to onboard a new client, how to run the statutory accounts, and so on. We even had, there was one of the work streams was assigned to Holly Culture, head of HR. I mean, we didn't have any H in there, AI and HR. And one of her deliverables, which I hadn't even seen when Grace had come up with her plan, was to run a values workshop, which is something as a management consultant I have run before with leadership teams, where that's been necessary to really help them shape the values, define examples, and so on, to help other team members as they grow understand like what are the behaviors we expect. But it was a surprise to me to see that the AI team had their workshop, and there were like quotes from these AI team members in their voices of their perceptions and beliefs around the core values and so on. And I was looking at these things, and by the way, I'll now mention and reveal like the whole thing that we're mentioning around a French team member. So one of the things when I first set up the whole thing, so it's a slight tangent, one of the things that I wanted when I set up the whole thing was I wanted a diverse team. Like I didn't want it just to be, oh yes, and it's come up with faceless drones, or even just a load of white men, which is sometimes one of the things that AI can do, is like default to biases and stereotypes. So instead I said, look, no, I want a diverse team. And one of the things it did as part of that was made one of the team French. And but of course it's like, how would that even come across? Like, how would you know that person is French? And so partly for comedy, I accepted Grace's suggestion that Debbie would speak with a French accent. And so I have to apologize to all of France and French speakers everywhere that there is a borderline problematic, but certainly stereotypical heavy use of using Z, so the and this and so on. to try in the book to try and kind of bring to life that Debbie is speaking with a different accent, despite the fact that, of course, they don't have access. They can't come from a country and all this kind of stuff, which is slightly crazy. But that was why I created Debbie in that way. But I was able to, back to that workshop, I was able to see that dialogue, those conversations. And I realized that firstly, the quality of what was being produced and the size of what was being produced and the speed was incredible. But also that was the first time that I realized I'm not going to have enough time to review all of this.
Yeah, this is important.
And that was the first step really in changing my own thinking. And it reminded me of an experience I'd had as an entrepreneur growing businesses, where you get to a certain size where you can't be on top of all the work that is being done. You can't micromanage everything. And as a result, you have to start thinking about what are you willing to delegate and what is material, what is most important that you need to be looking at as the leader. And I was having to apply that to these AI. And so that moment was one of the first times, but I had numerous throughout the experiment, including you mentioned that Ryan Piercy, who's a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales, described when we did a test exercise where he acted as a client with his real accounts with my AI team. And after a lot back and forth and doing his accounts and doing all these things, he described the results as scarily impressive, as changing his view on what was going to happen with AI in the accountancy profession over the next 5 years. He described the work done as being, as far as he could tell, better than that of trainee accountants and some qualified accountants, and particularly that the customer service was often better than what he had seen at most accountancy firms. And I think as we started to get to that point, that was where I was really seeing, okay, what we need is for accountancy firms to start waking up to this and taking action now, because I hear all the time people say AI won't take accountancy, the job of an accountant. Accountants using AI will take the job of an accountant. I actually think that is best case scenario. My bigger concern is that Silicon Valley is right now. I know they are. I know people who are involved in this. They are right now building technology with the explicit aim of replacing accountants. And so the risk and opportunity for accountancy firms across the world is to leverage the commodity now of AI, build on top of it, and as a result, deliver significantly more value to your clients and create a better, workplace and so on, like elevating your people, so that when the technology comes along with, and it's a little bit cheaper, clients aren't interested because they are getting incredible value. Whereas if you stay as you are, if you're charging by the hour, you're providing the bare minimum of services, and if someone wants cash flow forecasting, then that's a lot more money on top. And if they want monthly management accounts, that's a lot more money on top. Technology can just with AI can just replace all of that with zero marginal cost. But that's true for within accountancy firms as well, nearly. Yes, you're going to need to do some reviews, but it's not linear. So as a result, there is an opportunity or even an imperative for accountancy firms, professional services more generally, any knowledge work, to be looking at how you build on top of the AI and stand on the shoulders of AI to be able to do more, rather than see it as an efficiency gain or a way of replacing individual people.
This is really important. And if I'm don't using AI in my firm, okay, if I'm just chatting sometimes with ChatGPT or Claude, or even worse, if I'm in a free plan, okay, what do you recommend for me? What's your plan for me for the next 3 months?
Yes, so I would say it is helpful to read the book, because I think that will change the thinking. And I got an email today from an accountancy leader who wrote that she said that reading Accrual Intentions got me off the fence and made me realize I need to take action now. And as a result, she's now running sessions with her leadership team over this month to revisit everything in the firm except for vision and values, which I think is great. Like vision and values stays, everything else needs a look.
Yeah.
So I think I'd recommend doing that. And like, if preferred, you can go to accrualintentions.com and get the first 3 chapters for free just to check if it's something that you'd like to read. So you can get that. The other thing that you can do is on that website at accrualintentions.com, you can get a free AI guide, which shares some of the key insights from my experiments. And particularly if you're not going to read the whole book, then you could at least read that. Because that's a lot shorter. But it also provides some of the detail of the practicality of how did I build the agentic AI to work in this way. And it even provides guidance of how you could set up either OpenAI Codex or Microsoft's Copilot Co-work. It's important as the Co-work, or Claude Co-work, or Claude Code if you're more comfortable with that, but or if you're already using it, but Claude Co-work, and create a folder and drop that PDF that I've provided in there and say, right, help me start, give me the starter approach to this, and the content in my guide will be picked up by the AI and it'll build out the file structure and enable you to then experience some of it. Because I think that some of this you have to experience. You have to have that feeling, that moment of seeing, oh, I'm not thinking big enough. Because that was the experience I had over and over and over, is that whenever I was tasking the AI, it was like tasking a junior employee with, can you write this email for me? And they go and write the email and they come back and I go, that's not how no, look, they're a customer. And I realize, I need to provide all this context. And then they go and write it and they come back and I go, it doesn't sound like me. No, here's some examples of emails I've written. And then it goes away and then it comes back and I go, there's still some tweaks. And by that point, I think I may as well have just written it myself. Whereas, as I started to realize, in the same way as delegating to humans, I need to think bigger. I need to set an outcome. And the more that I did that, it started to unlock my brain and I started to be able to think bigger and elevate what I was doing rather than get stuck with the micromanaging. So I'd say that for a leader who hasn't yet had that experience, get that experience as quickly as you can. Then the next steps depends on the size of your firm. If you've got a small firm, like particularly if you're the sole operator, you should absolutely be thinking about essentially the concept of having some AI team members that you are using to get work done and make you move faster. So in my view, so that you can more quickly get to a point where it's worth you hiring people because there's just too much. Like you've managed to produce so much, you've managed to acquire so many clients, or managed to provide so many additional services to your existing clients that you need other people, real people, humans, to be able to deliver that to clients. Like that's what I'd want for small businesses. For larger businesses, you've actually got a tougher problem because you've got a group of people and a group of clients and a whole set of ways of working and possibly even a business model that may not be compatible currently with what the future looks like for how your firm was going to need to work. And so one of the things I've started doing with some of my clients and accountancy leaders that have been reaching out to me is to start building it within the firm, but rather than implementing it across the whole firm initially, starting it in one area and starting to build it and prove it and demonstrate it. And then we can start to pull people in. We can start to take specific clients that's a good fit for and start to build it, because over time, this will absorb everything else. But if you try and do AI to your people, and I've seen examples of this, companies that roll out Microsoft Copilot, give everyone a license at huge cost, and then start reporting on it, which is even more crazy. They just start reporting on it and almost holding a league table of who's using the most tokens. It's insufficient. It's insufficient to get real results, and it sends the wrong message, and it results in people, humans that you should care about in your organization, being very fearful for their jobs. And that doesn't have to be that way. You can set a very different vision for how you're going to be more human, be more humane with your people and how they work with their clients. But it requires a different operating model, and that requires some strategic thinking.
Yeah, and about strategic, I listened this morning your podcast with Ron Baker about the timesheet is dead, and Ron say every time timesheet is dead, but now it's really true because AI is doing the job. So what you will build if you build with timesheet? What's your truth, or what do you think what will be the next business model for accountancy firm or service firm?
Yeah, so the more and more I've looked at this, the more I've come to the conclusion that AI doesn't just become a tool that your people use. It is partly that it'll still be used as a tool alongside other applications. It'll be built into some of the tools that you use day to day, but you will also have a hybrid organization where you have AI team members in your organization that are able to be delegated to and can take action and then can pass work between both themselves and to other humans in your team and follow processes and so on. And so that's going to happen. And so you need to be ready and be building your business for how you're going to manage human plus AI collaboration and operations. And so that's something I've been spending a lot of time on, and I'm doing research into, is what does that look like and what works best and so on. I think that any organization that thinks that it replaces people, we will see short-term examples of that in some companies. We will see pockets as well where that happens in parts of an industry, but in general, that's not what we're going to see. We're going to see people operating on top of that, on top of the commoditized AI layer. So just to illustrate this as an example, in the accountancy world, and indeed I've done over the years, I've done a lot of work with internal finance departments as well. One of the biggest problems that you have is the ability to produce useful reports for business leaders to make decisions, and then help them interpret that information and then use their questions and challenges to help you improve that reporting for the future so that you can continue to help them make better decisions. And that, whether you're an internal finance person or an accountant working with a client, that's the dream, is that you're not just doing the compliance, the statutory accounts, the tax, you're actually helping the business succeed and grow and make better decisions and save money and make more money and get more cash in people's pockets. That is the real aim. And yet most finance teams, most accountants spend so much time just moving the data around and turning it into a report that they don't get time to sit down with a client early after the day, when the data is up to date, and have that conversation and learn. And that is that's where the time is going to be in the future. But the only reason that people are looking at accountancy as a job and saying, oh, well, does AI replace this? Is because right now, 70% or more is the copying and pasting data and the formatting and the fixing things and turning it into a thing and then emailing it. That's 70% now. And so when people look at that and say, well, AI could do all of that, they're right. They're not seeing that the 30% doesn't stay the same. It grows, because when you provide a report like a cash flow forecast or a management information report to a business leader and help them understand why it's relevant, they will have more questions, not fewer. Whereas if you just send them statutory accounts and say, sign this 9 months after year end, then all you'll get back is an email eventually saying, okay, I signed it. So sorry, it's so close to the deadline. And that's the difference.
So true. And so it's been years we are listening some consultant and everyone, or even accountants say, okay, I want to do consulting, I want to do advisory, and now I can do it, etc., etc. But at the end, now it's possible. And your experimentation, your book show, okay, now you can do it with AI, you can implement yourself, but how can we sell it to the client? Because the client right now, for me in France, I start to listen entrepreneurs say, okay, but accounting right now is just a click, and we have a software like Zero or like Intuit, and everyone's seeing, not everyone hopefully right now, but in 2 years in France we will have the e-invoicing. So in the mind of a lot of entrepreneurs, e-invoicing is like, okay, now the invoice is just a code, so it's directly for the VAT, and you, accountant, you just have to click and it's okay, the accounting or the balance sheet is ready. And so now, how can we strategically change our mind or change our offer to move to the advisory or consulting, or just be doing like you described earlier?
Yeah. So it's a big complex area, but to simplify it,
Yeah.
I'd say start with client value.
Yeah.
So start with, what does the client actually want and care about and need, and frame up what you're going to do in that context. So rather than starting with, here's what I currently do, let's say, oh, I currently do their statutory accounts, and they're saying, oh, I could just press a button to do that. And I'm saying, no, because it needs to be as good as I do it. And I'm going to charge you 2,000 euros for that, or more. And now if I say, oh, but now I can use AI, I don't want to say to my client, I'm now going to charge you 1,000 euros because I'm just giving money away. And also, but all the risk is still mine. And I have to do a load of work to make sure that the AI can even do a good job of that. So as a result, I can't charge any less. What's the point? And if you start with where you're at, you end up stuck in that trap.
Yeah.
Instead, if we start from where the client is, if we start with and take one particular, maybe your best client, the client that you want to help and succeed the most, and start with them and say, what do they really need? If they could afford it, what service should I be providing, or what transformation should I be providing, to use Ron Baker's thinking, who we mentioned earlier. Like, what's the transformation I'm trying to deliver, and therefore what could I provide, what support, service, deliverables, reports could I provide, and time that I could spend with that client to help them achieve their goals. And if you start there and then work backwards, you can then work out, okay, how can I use AI to help me provide that efficiently where previously I could not? So it might be, for example, that you conclude the thing that they would find most useful is cash flow forecasting. It's, maybe you've got a client who is brilliant, they're growing really fast, but cash flow is causing them so much stress, and it's affecting their health. And so you decide that's what they really need. They need that visibility so they can make decisions 3 months before it's a problem. But at the moment, they're not willing to pay extra to have it. And they don't even know that it would provide value. So I'm going to start from, the ideal is that I'm, on a weekly basis, giving them confidence in their cash position based on a forecast. And as a result, to do that, I'm going to work out how, using AI, I can take bank feeds out and connect to the Zero and so on, and as a result, produce their cash flow forecast and display it in a way that's actually going to make sense for them. Which, by the way, one of my favorite little sayings at the moment is, why is anyone using PowerPoint? Like, a PowerPoint is just a presentation tool. It is far less efficient than creating an HTML file, a web page, and AI is far better at producing a web page. Therefore, any report, any presentation should be in HTML. It should be a web page instead. Not even on the website. Like, it can be on your local drive, same with PowerPoint. But like, if you work backwards there, you could say, I could create an interactive cash flow forecast file for my client that helps answer the question, when do I need to worry about cash, and what should I be doing? And then I could say to the client, and I want to help you use this, and I want to help you improve that picture, because there's loads of things we can do. We can bring money in earlier. We can get your costs going out later. We can look at reducing the costs. But to do that, I need to have a conversation with you so I can dig into this. But the reporting side, that's free, because I can just do that. That's included as part of working with us. If you find it useful. And I'll know that you find that useful if we have these conversations and so on.
Yeah.
And so suddenly you're able to have a different value-focused conversation with your client, and the time that the value that you deliver, they will want to pay for.
Yeah.
Where they will want to pay for you being in their lives, helping them be less stressed and be more on top of it.
Yeah.
That is how you get that transformation. And then you can work backwards to all of your other services.
Yeah.
But it's difficult. And as I say, it's the bigger and more complex you are as an organization, the less well documented your processes are, the less consistent that your services are, the harder all of this is.
Yeah.
And so, I say to a lot of my clients on the air manual side, where we work with them on processes, you are in a perfect position because you've just spent the last year or so documenting all of your processes and how you think and what your services are. And so now it's so much easier for us to change those processes to adopt AI and have your entire team know how to now work in future, and indeed help AI even understand what your process is. So that would be my guidance.
I have to put in the show note in description the episode you did with Ron about the transformation economy, because it's really important to understand, okay, how we need to change our mindset, and our role is to help our clients to get from the point A to the point B and to do the way with them. I just think a new question. It's, what are the reactions from the team of practice when they read the book?
Yeah. So far, from people reading the book, the feedback I've had is very positive. I would welcome anyone to reach out with your feedback, your thoughts, your reflections. I've had people reach out to me and share. Like, I had an accountancy leader in Germany a week or two ago sent me how they were implementing it in their firm, and with their essentially German set of roles and structure and escalation paths, which hopefully with AI, I was able to translate and compare it to what I'd done and so on.
I can imagine it. It should be really, really like, okay, okay.
And so I would encourage people to do that. But generally, people who have read the book end up in a good place and give me good feedback. Where I see people struggling, scared, like, possibly even actively resistant or rebelling against AI, is because of a lack of understanding what a positive future for AI looks like. Because I think that, say, like when I do presentations, one of the questions I sometimes like to ask is, put your hand up if you're excited about AI, like not just curious, really excited. Now put your hand up if you're terrified. Like you're really worried about what AI could do for accountancy, for the world, and so on. Put your hand up. Now put your hand up if you're both of those things. Because if there is a right answer, I think it's both. I think if you're only terrified and worried, then your conclusion will be, how do we stop AI?
Yeah.
If you're only excited, you will be blind to the risks, and you won't be able to think about how might my team and even my clients feel about this, and what do I need to be doing as a result. When you are both, when you're going in eyes open at there is loads of risk and this is a problem and I need to be sensitive and thoughtful, but also I'm excited, I see positive options, that's where I think you get great results. I think that the teams that approach it as efficiency or tell their team, you've got to use AI, like, if you're not using it, you're out. I think that's a mistake. I think you need to start the other way. You need to create appetite and interest in leveraging it so that you can do better things. Like when I used to work with finance teams to help them do things like producing better management information reports, I remember one finance controller saying to me, like, we won't be like, if we provide this level of reporting to management, they'll just ask more questions and we won't have time.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to, but that's the point. Like, if your top leadership are asking questions, it's to help them make better decisions. That's the real value. And what that creates is an opportunity to make everything else more efficient so that you've got time for this. The only reason that you feel like you haven't got time for this is because of all the admin work that you're having to do.
Yeah.
But then if we try and tackle the admin, you don't want to fix that because you say, but then what will we do? We'll be just doing ourselves out of a job.
Yeah.
And so instead, you have to help people understand that actually there's an opportunity for them to do, not just deliver more value, but do more of what they enjoy doing. And I think that's a really important thing for our organizations and for society, is to see this as an opportunity to use people's strengths and the things that people enjoy and are excited about, and lean into that more. In the same way as when you're looking across your team, there are some people who love to have calls with customers, some people who hate picking up the phone. There are some people who love talking about and playing with the numbers. Some people fear a spreadsheet. Like, those things exist, like those differences exist in your business. And weirdly, each one of those people often assumes that if I hate it, other people must hate it too. And so they often are reluctant to delegate. They'll say, oh, I don't want to give this really boring job to someone else because it's so boring. Someone else doesn't find it boring. And so I think that's the opportunity for us, is to look at the work we're doing and allocate the boring, the uncreative, the repetitive, the frustrating work to AI team members who don't mind, because they're not conscious, they're not sentient. Although in the book I bring it to life in lots of ways. They're not human, they are pattern matching. And instead, the real humans, the people who do lose sleep at night because their manager hasn't given them feedback and they don't know how well they're doing at work and so on, those are the people that we should be spending more time on. Partly because it's the right thing to do, partly because when your people feel good and are doing things they enjoy, their ability to contribute is 10 times or 100 times what is perhaps normal for what most people experience from team members.
And that's why you write something really important in the book to understand. It's the new role for the team is to manage agent. And this is really important. And how many, what do you think about agent in practice or service firm? Is it like I will have like 20 agents in my team and every team member can choose which agent he will use? Or will I create something like 10 agents per clients?
Really interesting question. And it's something that, funnily enough, I was actually discussing with my co-founder of a software platform that we're currently working on to try and solve the people plus AI operations issue, which if people are interested in learning about, maybe even joining the waiting list, they can find that at ukoru.com. That's ukoru.com. Because I think, because that's an interesting dynamic. Now, the management scientist in me looks at this problem and says there's a few things that become limitations of how many agents a human can then manage. I think the short answer becomes it's probably similar to managing humans, which typically means that you're probably looking around like 6, 7 people that are under each manager. And I think there's a variety of reasons for that. There's been loads of research on this. Partly it's about the ability for you to spend time delegating and parceling up the work. Partly it's based on when you look at the scope of what you do, it's helpful for you to break it down into 5, 6, 7 groups that then an agent can take. So there's lots of reasons why that makes sense. Whereas, for example, if I said you've got 100 direct reports, you wouldn't be able to remember their names and what each of them does, never mind where they're at with particular work and so on. So there's a coordination challenge. Whereas if I said you've only got one and you just give all of your work to it, you can't specialize it. The benefit of splitting out is that, for example, in the experiment I ran, I was able to create an agent, Buzz Clickman, who is head of marketing, and all the information and context and roles and responsibilities that Buzz has is all marketing related. Whereas I have Reginald Rules, who's responsible for compliance, and everything he's got is compliance related. If I'd had to give one person, one team member, human or AI, all of that, it's too much. And so when they go to draft a LinkedIn post, it's not possible to do. So I think it does make sense to split that out. However, remember that in human organizations, that each of your direct reports might have their own direct reports. And so I think that is likely for AI agents as well. You might have a head of compliance AI agent who in turn has multiple sub-agents and sub-team members that then do work. And the work is done, compiled, brought together, reviewed more holistically, and eventually goes to a human for review and sign off before it actually has an proper impact on the business, given a risk level and so on. So I think that's where I see this going. But I think we are going to be managing humans and AI team members, and I think there is a positive world in which that elevates our capability rather than replacing us.
Perfect, Alexis. I see the time. Do you want to add something?
I'd say that the most important thing for listeners for this episode is to understand that the AI transformation is coming. Like, we don't know whether it's only as big as the internet and mobile phones, whether it's bigger and is industrial revolution level, but it's sufficiently big that it's worth making sure that you're on that journey. I'd also say it is not primarily a technological challenge for firms. It is a leadership and management one. And therefore, the technology is already good enough to do most of the things that you're already not doing and should. Therefore, start solving this problem today. Don't treat it as something that you're going to wait for. Oh, I'll wait until the models are good enough. They're already good enough. Or I'll wait until we decide whether OpenAI or Anthropic are going to win. Probably neither. Doesn't matter. There's plenty of models out there. All of them are good enough to do most of the stuff now. The challenge is now one of adoption, of trust, of management, of integration, of transition. And those are all leadership and management challenges, all of which are ones that as leaders of businesses, we are as well positioned as we've ever been to adopt. And so take the action now. And as much as possible, do it in a way that builds the world you want to see rather than a dystopian one.
Yeah, love it. I can say it something better. The only thing I can add is I will do a lot of conferences, France, until the end of the year. And I'm pretty sure that I will explain your experimentation and I will speak about your book every time, because I feel like everyone needs to read it. Every accountant, in fact, because it's now, and it's what you just said. It's now. It's not a dream, and I can't fight against it. I just need to think my strategy and say, okay, this is it. This is now. All the models are okay. So how can I embrace it? And thanks a lot, Alexis. Thanks for your work. And last question: what will be your next experimentation?
Oh yes. So I have started working on two experiments. One is currently in progress, and one I'm currently scoping. So one is around essentially how does it work to act as an AI manager of AI team members that are then operating autonomously, and how do I optimize that so that I'm not a bottleneck for reviews? Because one of the things I found is that the more work they can do, the more I just become a bottleneck. So how do I remove myself from that? And then the experiment I'm currently scoping is to try and help solve the problem with junior development, which is what does junior accounting look like? What do junior employees do when they haven't got judgment and experience of working with clients and so on? And how do we accelerate that? Because that's something that I've worked on in the past through employee onboarding, through my work through Air Manual and consulting. And so I want to see if I can leverage AI to provide an accelerated path for junior employees to be able to provide the real skills that we need in future, the 30%, rather than assuming that they need to do the 70% of the job to learn how to do the 30%. I suspect that that's incorrect thinking. So that's what I'm working on next. So it's likely there'll be more. You'll probably see more books from me yet. But I'm also speaking at lots of events about this, and also I like to make it funny. So as a result, I do talking to my team on stage, and it's often very funny. And so I'm speaking in various events in Manchester, in Toronto, in Tallinn, in Estonia, in London, in Glasgow. So various other places. If people are keen to come see me at one of those things, like reach out and I can and tell me where you are, and I'll tell you where I'm next at. If people are interested in booking me for their events, they can find out my speaking information at alexiskingsbury.com. Perhaps we could do a Alexis double trouble setup at an event in France. I'm a big Francophile. I have many holidays to France in my motorhome with my wife and kids. So the opportunity to come and get involved at conferences in France would be hugely appreciated.
You will work on it.
Le français, mais c'est ne pas parfait. Donc,
it could be a really great idea. Let's stop the record and then discuss about it. It could be a really great idea. I have something in my head.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
I will put your seat, all the website we discussed, obviously the link of the books, and even in France we can buy it on Kindle if you want it to read it right now, and of course your LinkedIn profile too. It was really a pleasure. Thanks, Alexis, for taking the time to discuss. Thanks for your experimentation. And hope to see you soon in France. Obviously, we will work on something.
Merci beaucoup.
Thanks.
Au revoir.